Hi, some of you I know, some of you I will know after this class, I'm sure. Welcome, please. Just to get a sense, how many of you are writing mains now? Well, keep your hands up. Those who are writing this year, how many of you have given this exam before, mains? And if you could spare a couple of minutes, not too long, because I will go through the entire spectrum of the structure, the approach and the framework in solving case studies. So I will not go into the whole realm of ethics. While it is interesting, and I would love to speak to you for longer sessions, but the mandate today is only to give you the framework and the ways and means to attack this exam, right? So tell me, what is that you thought was the easy part of the case studies and the difficult part of case studies, case study questions? If you guys can share with me for a few minutes, and then I'll get into the for ethics part.
So in ethics, last year, I actually had a classification. Like there might be a question on conflict of interest or in case study, because the case study will have they will generally have some dilemma.
Okay.
They'll ask to explain like why we should not go for the corruption. So I had some previous framework with me. Like in corruption, I have to think as a human being, as a citizen of the country, being a part of the family, being a part of the organization, some laws.
No, tell me, what is the harder part that you faced? Which part was difficult and what did not get you marks?
Basically, in case studies. In case studies, the hardest part for me is to identify the overall issue.
Okay, good. Identify the crux of the case, the linchpin, as you say, the pivot, as you say. That was harder part? Yeah. Okay, we will tackle that. Anything else? You not written. Those who have written?
Sir,
yeah, please go ahead.
Choosing best out of what they had given to us, the points which
they had given several options and you did not know which one to pick. And why did you think that was difficult?
So
why?
It was difficult that what they were saying, right significance of your what you have opted for, and then what will be the repercussions, the point you have chosen.
Okay.
In that case, it becomes very difficult to justify my answer in both ways, or choosing a balanced opinion.
Okay.
So I think the best part is justification of the answer. Yeah. Whatever option you're choosing,
okay,
that has to be justified.
Okay. That you were finding it difficult to justify.
Yeah, that is the most crucial part.
You were finding it hard to justify. Was it because that you yourself were not convinced about what you were writing? If you were convinced about what you were writing, would it have been that difficult?
No.
Maybe not, right? Agree to that point?
Within a given time frame,
yeah,
that has to be written and that has to be justified.
Justified, that is the harder part. And what is your graduation?
So engineering.
Engineering. You've done mathematics, physics and all. Growing up, you must have studied all of it. But did you ever study ethics as a discipline?
Yes.
All the ethics that you've learned is from within yourself, or from your family or society around you, or largely from your religion. And suddenly, all of a sudden, UPSC comes up with a question paper in which it is asking about something that you are never taught. And even that, 50% of the questions are asking you in a case study system which none of the universities, none of the colleges, none of the schools have ever tested you in any of your exams. So it is very unfair in a sense, right? And it's natural that you're finding it difficult to answer this. So do you remain helpless in this, or do you have something that you can actually do it? Now that is the whole game here. So I will help you with that structure. I will help you with the approach that is required. And to crack this, it's just a very small issue. It's no big deal actually. But since you have never been exposed to this, you're finding it difficult. So how we go about it, I'll give you certain small material also at the end of the class, but through the class also. What is your impression about opinion? Do you think that you need to carry your opinion in the answer? You think. Second part of my question is an opinion right? Does it remain right at all points in time? It becomes subjective. So if it is subjective and if it is no right, no wrong, why do so often we become obsessed with giving a right opinion? We very often become, when I've spoken to so many of you in ethics, so very often people are obsessed. Just now you said you do not know what is the right one or the wrong one. Okay? But is there a right one or a wrong one? You really don't know. The whole of American society is decided on two different opinions, pro-choice and pro-life. So you mean to say the guy who says, or the girl who says pro-choice is wrong? When the society is divided 50%, how can something be right and something be wrong? It's not possible, isn't it? So the first thing that you have to make part of your psyche, make part of your belief system, so long as this exam is concerned, is put this thing aside when it comes to ethics and answering that opinion should be right or wrong. Put it in a shelf, lock it and keep it aside. Having said that, what you also need to do is give equal importance to different opinions that are available. Are you open? Are you alive that there are so many different opinions around? If you are alive, prove it, justify it, show it on the paper. Getting my point? Okay? Before I kick off my ethics session, let me show you a very, very small clip. Can somebody help me with these guys? How long are we here? How long are you guys willing to sit with me? Huh? As long as I want. Okay, it's visible. Okay, just take a look at this and then we'll talk. Okay? What is it showing? You have a track. Sorry?
We have two options.
Yeah.
Either save one or we can provide.
Save one child or save the group of
5. So if this gentleman or a lady, this will not show what it is. If this gentleman or the lady has an option, she can pull the lever and turn the train to the other side. Okay? That is another option. Oh, it must have got stuck in between. Okay. That's another option. which one would you choose? How many of would you choose the first one and how many would choose the second one? You would choose the second one. What's your name? Neeraj. Who would choose? Who would go with Neeraj? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Any reason? What's your name? Prolay, yeah.
So I would consider 3 aspects in this particular piece.
Okay.
The very first thing is the number of lives that can be saved.
Okay.
Number 2 is in a broader perspective, what can it give to societal loss?
Right.
Societal loss means if 5 lives are lost, so that's a bigger
Loss to this. Okay.
loss for the society. And the third aspect will be looking at the moral dilemma over here. Although this would be a parity kind of situation where this loss is much more lesser compared to that loss.
Okay.
So
Neeraj, something similar? Yeah, third one. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Third one would be satisfying my moral dilemma. Second one would be societal, and first one would be the actual monetary loss.
You want to add to that, Neeraj? Or you just have an opinion that is the right thing to do and you would do that?
I have seen this from the perspective of utilitarian use.
Okay. Utilitarian view. Okay. Any other? Why would you do this?
Because saving 5 lives is more important than saving.
Saving 5 lives is more important than saving 1 life. What's your name?
Apur.
Apur. Apur, you are the district collector of a district. Okay? There is a famine in the district, in your district. And when you get the supplies from FCI or from other food security, you got to distribute them in different taluks now. Okay? Now, in one particular taluk, the number of people are less. Let's say there are only about 300 people. And there is another taluk which has got huge, maybe 10 times more, 30,000 people. When the trucks have to come, you have a choice of either directing those trucks to those 30,000 or you have the choice of directing those to those 3,000. What would you do? It's very similar scene? Okay, hold your answer. Now look at this. Neeraj and Prolay, okay, that's a nice name. Please. Look at another scene. Those of you who said who will say 5 lives, I am addressing to you guys. There is a bridge, you're standing on the bridge and you have some big fat fellow like me standing next to you and you have an option of kicking me onto the track and the engine will come to a stop. You're sacrificing me to save those 5 people. Would you do it? No? Opinion kahan gaya? It went out of the window now? What was right a few minutes back, it's no longer right, Neeraj? Yes, yes. क्या आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे?
In this case, you are out of the frame. You are not on the not on the tracks.
Okay.
You are on the bridge. So
Okay.
there is no chances of your injury. But now if I am pushing you or following you on the track, then now it's my fault because you are out of the frame. Now I am putting you into the frame.
Okay. Here the kid is out of the frame. It is none of his fault. He is playing on an abandoned track. Why did you take his life into your control? In the first situation, the kid is playing in the abandoned track. Who gave you the right to take control of his life? That you drove the track into abandoned track and killed him. If you had taken control of his life here, why are you not taking control of this gentleman's life and kicking him? Both are similar. What has changed here?
My answer for this situation will be, since the train was supposed to come on that track, on which 5 people are playing, 5 children are playing. So they are, despite knowing it that the train will come on that track, they are playing on it.
Okay.
So that means this is out of their ignorance. But this guy who is standing on the side track, this guy is innocent, first of all.
Okay. So you will allow 5 people to die and...
no, I will not neither take any of them.
Okay. No, we have gone past that. We have come to this point.
Yes,
That's why I said, if you have something else, just hold on for a second.
yes,
I was addressing those guys who first said they will save 5 people and kill this, allow this young boy to die. When I posed him this question, okay, instead of that one boy, I am standing here. Scene here is again you are allowing one person to die and in face of trying to save 5 people. Would you do it? The same guy said no, they will not do it. He's got a different reasoning. I don't know what reason was yours. You didn't say it.
For this case?
Yeah.
No, sir, I haven't.
You haven't said. He said he will not do it. Why would you not do it? You are willing to sacrifice one life earlier.
Sir, there is a difference of means in both the cases.
I'll pull out this lever and keep it on the bridge now. Will it change? Or instead of the braid, I will ask this fellow here, and from here you lure him onto the track, talking him through. The situation will not change much. The point I'm trying to make here is, would somebody switch the light on, please? The point here trying to make here is, when you say you're willing to kill one guy in order to save 5, you are weighing the options of what is the best option. You're looking into the consequences of your action, right? If I let one guy kill, and maybe it's possible that 5 people will survive. You're looking into the future. You're looking into the consequences of your actions, and that is called as teleological approach in ethics. I'm not going into the big theory. I'm just giving you the gist of it. It is called the teleological approach. The minute you talk about teleological, into the future, into the consequences, into the utility of your action, it is called as teleological approach. Now what happens here? Ravi, what happens here? Why were these guys saying, no, we will not kick him onto the track?
So they are looking at their duty. I mean, they have to push it out.
What is the duty?
Duty to save someone. I mean, duty to save the 5 people. And here they are both confused whether they have to save. They have the duty of saving the 5 people, or they have the duty of saving this guy who is standing on the bridge.
Yeah, you're saying something? Here, the same set of people who are willing to sacrifice one life now are saying, no, we will not do it, for the simple reason they feel life is a universal value, it cannot be taken away. And the minute they are doing that, they are using or they are applying what is called a deontological approach. The whole of ethics revolves around these two, the utilitarian view or the deontological view. Okay, the difficulties that you are facing, which is right or wrong, is also has to be threaded into this approach. Unless you know what is the approach, what the from the time in memory, philosophers have said, what is the theory of ethics that has said about it, you don't get a bearing ke kahan se shuru karu main isko bolun ki usko bolun. No, once you have this understanding, it is clear. Now, which is the right one, which is the wrong one, that's a separate question. We will address that part little later. But your approach, your beginning should be here at least ki, what is what approach? You getting my point? Any doubts still here? Okay, now you ask me your question. You had something else.
Yeah. So for that, killing one innocent person for saving 5 lives, I will not prefer that. Rather, in this situation, I would like to take the stand. I would justify this situation by going through doctrine of karma. Means I will do my work. And I'll try to stop the train. If it does not stop, anyway I will not divert it towards the...
you had no choice. That's a runaway train. You had the only means which you had to stop the train was shift this way or that way. You had no other choice. It's a runaway train, does not have a driver. It is going on a free run. The only option that you had was do it this way or that way, and no option. So If you were to try and stop it, probably you will have to lay down on the track yourself. That was the only other option available. Okay. This was just to make your opening clear. Now, Apur, coming back to the district collector situation. Now, what do? You said 5 people is more precious than 5 guys are more precious than 1 person.
Pushing a fat man onto the railway track is more than a kind act of fear, murder type of act, because you can't.
No, not track. You said you will turn the lever towards 1 guy, not you will try and save 5 people. What would you do if you are a district collector? The supplies have now come, so you have to direct it to one taluk and the other taluk. 300 people, 3,000 people and 30,000 people.
Both taluks are come under my.
Both under yours. Both are in the same district. You are the district collector. You have several taluks, and one taluk has got 3,000, the other has 30,000. Now the supplies are coming. Incidentally, supplies when they come, they first touch the 3,000 village taluk and they pass beyond it. What do?
The taluk which have less population.
Choose the taluk which has less population. Why? You are reversing your answer now. You have no answer there. You as a district collector are responsible for both, regardless of there is 3,000 people or 30,000 people. The minute you say I give priority of one over the other, you are no longer the district collector of the district, no longer the IS officer. The minute you say this opinion is right and this answer is correct, you are no longer giving the right answer to the evaluator. You are sealing your own fate. Deontology, duty, regardless of what the situation is, it's your duty to perform, duty to save life, duty, when we talk about probity, duty to discharge the welfare measures, the policies which the government has created for the people. It's your duty. You can't be weighing consequences. But so very often we start getting into consequential approach. Having said that, do we forsake consequential approach? No, you got to be aware of what is this. Unless you know what is night, you will not know what is daylight. Unless you know what is daylight, you will not know what is. Okay? And you have to present yourself to the examiner saying, okay man, here, so you are being smart, so I am smart as well. This is this approach, that is that approach. If I take this approach, this is the answer. If I take that approach, that is the answer. If there are 10 marks on the question, okay, you have covered just about everything. You might at best not cover the answer. If you think that is an answer, there is no answer. You are jolly well scoring 80-85%. But if you take to one opinion and say, okay, this is the answer, you're done for already. You're over. You sealed your fate. You dug your own grave. You're allowing him to only come and shove the earth on your grave now, into the pit. That's all. Okay? Clear so far? So what? It's about 4:45. I'll try and run through a session for next 1 hour, giving you a clear framework. When I was teaching decision making, I used to take little longer sessions. When I started teaching for the civil servants, I realized people want, cut and dry kind of approach, which is actually not how it works. But I have modified both of them, and I have created a framework which some of them who have been through my class have gone through my class already know it. I'll try and put it in 3 simple points. You will understand what it is. One is structure. And the function. Whatever framework which we will go through now, after you have done through it, you should know the structure of how you need to frame your answers, okay? And you need to know what approach you have to apply, and by applying this approach, what is the function? What are you trying to address in a big picture? Are you trying to become an ethical person by writing this exam? While I wish each one of you become the most ethical person, That is not my mandate here today. My mandate today now is that you should know the spectrum of how to answer this and clear this ethics paper. In the process, you become, I am sure, you will become ethical. But if I say I am trying to make you ethical, you will walk out of this classroom right now. So I don't want to take that risk. I want you guys to sit through and get the skill set and clear this exam first. And people are not exposed to ethics. That is the problem when you see many recent IAS officers and other officers, they were caught in their first postings while accepting. What what could have motivated them to get into service, one doesn't know, but that is not my mandate here today. Anyway, I'll just try and help you to get through the exam. Okay. I'm not getting into any of the theories of ethics, but as and when it comes, I will try and make a reference to it. And if you have doubts, ask me, and if we have time, we will talk about it. You have literature, or what we call it as case. You have it. Now, the minute you have it, what do? Read it, right? And before you have finished reading, how many of you have already formed an opinion and an answer? A lot of you do that. Don't we do that? We always do that, isn't it? The reason why we do that? One, that's how we have been brought, and we are trained to fight or flight is a human natural behavior. You look for solutions. There are only 3 women in the class. There was always this difficulty that I faced while dealing with my friends, women friends, girls, females, whatever word you want to use. And whenever they would come around and talk to me and narrate the problem, the first thing that I would do was, which all the men in the classroom would have done, was to find a solution and give them the solution. Okay, you have a problem? Here, take, this is the solution. Do we do that or no? Huh? Yeah, girls would watch for it, right? But the point is, I learned it very, very late that they're not looking for a solution. They all, in all probability, they already have a solution. They just want you to listen. That's all they want. A problem is a solution. हो गया ना? फिर क्या बोल रहे हो? हो गया ना? बता तो दिया. So this is our inherent problem. So when I see answers that are given in evaluation, and I see from boys and from girls, I see girls write this better than boys. Their instinct of sharing detail actually helps them in writing an answer. Boys have a tough time to give an explanatory written answer because they're not used to it. They're clinical, not like the clinical attacks that had happened recently. They're precise. हो गया, कैसा करें? चले, मूवी चलें, कहाँ जाना है? पीने जाना है, शराब लेना, पार्टी होना. That will not solve the problem. Okay. You got to read the full case. And read the full case and imagine maybe one of your friend is narrating something to you. Don't jump to a conclusion कि ये है कि वो है. Just read through the whole case. Don't form an opinion. It is difficult, but try doing it. Why do you need to do it? You need, after you have done, you got to do what is called as 2 things. 1, see whether you have all the facts of the check whether all the facts are given in the case. For example, if somebody is asking you a question on Right to Information Act, the case is on Right to Information Act. Try and see what are the facts of the case. or all the facts available, is there something missing? Okay. For example, when I played that caricature, I forgot to tell you that the engine was without a driver. Only when he mentioned about it, that thought came to my mind. I missed it because we were getting late, so I pushed into it. So I missed saying that. So without that piece of information, the whole discussion was slightly wavered, wasn't that? So once you read, if it is a Right to Information Act, and if they are talking about the Act, just see which provision, which clause of the Act are they talking, whether the whole thing is provided in it or if there is something missing, because that will be an arsenal for you when you write your answer, if there is something missing. Okay, you got to have all the facts. Second, what have you got to do? Separate facts from, who will help me here? I need an answer here. Separate facts from moral principles are also facts, no?
Emotional experience.
Great, thank you. What's
Pralay, you can put
Pralay? Thanks, Pralay. You saved my day. Huh? You got to clear. Matlab, why do you need to do that? You need to do that to tell the examiner, see, I am capable of doing this. You know, regardless of whether I will be right or wrong at the end of the day, I have a clear approach. I know how to tackle a problem. I can't mix my emotions with facts of the case. If, like Apurva was saying, if 3000 के लोग यहाँ पे हैं, वहाँ पे मेरे भाई बंधु रहते हैं, अरे मेरे भाई बंधु रहते हैं, पहले वहाँ ले जाओ सप्लाईज. या 3000 वाला विलेज दूर है, 30,000 वाला पास है, दोनों मर रहे हैं, यहाँ देने के बजाय आप अपने इमोशंस मिलाएंगे तो क्या होगा? You will take them elsewhere. So you got to be clinical. You have to segregate facts from emotions. Why? Because because ethics is not. Who will help me? It is not emotions. It is not it is not somebody said feelings and emotions. It is not what else? Huh? Selfishness, bias. Normally we have this confusion. We always think, how often we get this confused? While we get ethics from religion, but is that what it is? Not necessarily, right? Any confusion on that, we'll come back. Okay, then the next important point here is, what you got to do is, big question is, is it legal? Why do you need this question? Why do you need to answer this question? What happens with answering this question?
Because we are bounded with law, so we can't go beyond that. So we always seek for, is it legal or not?
Agreed. But I'm with you. I agree with that. But since we are writing a case, we are trying to open it threadbare, and it's an ethics case. We need to go beyond that. You need to go beyond ethics. Even when it is legal, is it ethical? To find to that answer, first you need to know whether it is legal or not. There is a possibility that it is legal, it may not be unethical, it may not be ethical, it could be completely unethical. I keep saying this in the class very often. The minute somebody says why it is legal, I am doing it because it is legal. The minute a politician or a public office holder or anybody, bureaucrat says it is permitted, it is legal, I am doing it, it is legal, your antennas must straight away go up. There is enough room now, if not enough room, there is a doubt that has risen now. Maybe, while it is ethical, maybe it is not. While it is legal, maybe it is not ethical. That is the reason this fellow is blowing his trumpet, saying repeatedly it is legal and legal. If it is legal, probably it is not ethical. How do we tackle each of this? The minute it is illegal, your course of the answer takes a different stream. While it is legal, it could still be unethical, then your course of answer takes a different flair. Are you getting my point? So if you get to the answer opinion straight away, ये सब चीजें कहाँ दिखाओगे आप? You will not be able to show this all in a case, isn't it? It's not very difficult. So you can say, for example, somebody is saying labor laws, child labor. If somebody is having child labor at his homegrown industry or cottage industry, 14 years and above are permitted legally, but is it still ethical? There's a question. While he should be going to the school, so is he being allowed, if the girl child is being allowed to go to the school or not? It's an ethical question. We had a very good answer in one of my earlier classes. There was a girl, when I asked the difference between ethical and legal, as a society, as the people in Delhi, everybody agreed with what the Chief Minister said, that there has to be odd and even days for driving cars with odd and even numbers, with certain exceptions. The senior citizens, the hospitals, and few others, including women. The exception was given in a situation that women might find it hard to go around if they are not provided with transportation. So Sheetal was her name. Oh, now I remember. Shilpa. She said, sir, this is a classic case of while it is legal for me to drive around, while it may not necessarily be ethical, because I can get around even without a car. The whole spirit of odd and even is that we are trying to remove cars from the streets. So while I have been given the right to drive, it is not necessary I have to drive around, because I believe in the spirit of the concept, so it is unethical on my part to drive around. That was a beautiful example. Like on a signal, you are standing, when you are standing at the signal, you have the green line in your favor, you can drive around. But suddenly you see there is somebody who is hit by some accident and he needs to be moved around, so he gets priority. So you are legally right, you can drive around him, but are you giving him way? Are you giving him right of way? So if you are giving, then you are ethical. If you are not, then unethical. I hope that gives a clarity between what is it. So you need to get that thing right. Once you know it is ethical, legal or not, then you check whether it is ethical. So you need to do all this right at the beginning when you have the case. Now comes a harder part, a slightly difficult part, which is what are the two approaches we talked about? There is another approach. Who will help me with another approach? There are many. Right-based approach is It's almost like virtue ethics. Utilitarian is part of teleological. Utility. What is the utility in that decision? Teleological is further away what happens, consequences. Utility is what is benefiting me or benefiting Chotilal, benefiting you, or to whom the utility at the end goes.
Existential.
Existential, there is no ethical approach as such, but yeah, that's not what it is.
Equity based approach.
Whole of ethics is equity based.
Rational rational approach, rational ethics.
Who said that? Yeah. I'm saying all this, there are many approaches. I'm giving these three for you to tackle your questions in the exam. Doctrine of double effect. What is that, if somebody can help me? Amir?
Sacrificing one to making giving up notice to other.
Is that simple?
It's a method to check the ethicality of any action. So there are 3-4 parts of it. First is the intention should be checked, and nature of action should be checked. It should be ethical. For example, like the last year case of one person fell in the zoo in the lion's cage. So there was an option that somebody should shoot that tiger. So shooting itself is it will kill somebody's life. So it's an unethical option. Third thing is that the main aim should not be the side effect of the
You're right.
Yeah.
Good. You got it. What it means is, you must have, I'll start with this example so all of you can connect it faster, because when you get into that theory part, it becomes difficult. America strikes Afghanistan, America strikes Syria, Iraq, America struck all over the world. God knows where all they're going to strike now. When they say they are trying to contain the fundamentalists in that area, whether it is Taliban or Al Qaeda, whatnot. Or during Iraq's regime, they said we are going and attacking Iraq because he's got weapons of mass destruction, blah blah blah. When people ask them about the civilian deaths, the innocents who are dying in those strikes, what is the answer that they have? Collateral damage. They say it's a collateral damage. It's a small damage which we have to bear out because we are looking for a larger cause. We are trying to achieve a larger cause. I'm just giving this example for you to understand what this was given by a saint, Aquinas, many years ago. What he said, an act can be considered ethical provided, before I come to that, I will use this also as an example. A woman has got some medical trouble, okay, and she has to undergo a surgery. If she does not undergo a surgery, she will die. And in the process of that surgery, gynec or what is the other word? Gynecology और दूसरा क्या है उसका? Gynec. In one of the complications, if the woman is not saved, if the surgery is not performed, she will die. If the surgery is performed, part of the surgery, the follicles have to be removed. If the follicles are removed, what will happen? She will not be able to bear children anymore. Okay? So now you're not trying to create a situation where she becomes barren. No, that is not the original intention. That is a consequence of certain action. With the certain action is a bigger action where you are trying to save somebody's life. The consequence is you are losing out on something else. The surgery was not performed to remove the follicles. The surgery was for a larger effect. Sorry.
Save life.
Save life, yeah. Surgery was to save life. Second, the consequence, the magnitude of the consequence or the loss, magnitude of the loss in relation to the original whatever is saved has to be too small compared to what you have actually. And the third is your intention was originally not to use that as a stepping ladder to do the other one. So he says if these three conditions meet, then ethically it is acceptable. That's what he says, doctrine of double effect. But there are many other deontologists critical about it. They say, no, that's not acceptable. It has to be, follicles have to be saved, that woman has to be saved. That is what the duty is. Because the minute you say okay, something is sacrificable, then it is very difficult to draw the line. Okay? Now you have got the case material. What do you do? For example, we take I'll give you a small case. With that case it becomes very easy for you guys to understand. Can उसको बुला लेना, ये वाला मंगवा लेना. ये वाला उसके कॉपीज लाना. You have now a beginning of your framework. You have a case. There is literature. You read through it. Once you have read through it, you see facts from emotions. And when you pick up, and what do you do with the emotions? Kick them out of the window. दे देना सबको दे देना. Are we ready? Yeah? Okay, now we'll just hold the first two parts which I told you, to read through the entire case and to put your emotions and facts aside. We will not discuss at this moment, we will do that with the next case, but we'll go to the next part. The next part is, either you want to call it as due diligence or iteration, okay? The positives or the negatives or whatever, we will, don't call them as positives or negatives, we will try and put all that is related to this case in the realm of ethics on one side of the sheet, okay? What all comes to your mind, start shooting. What is this case about? What is ethical about it or legal about it, all that, whatever comes to your mind, just keep shooting it now. Okay, go ahead, Neeraj. One after the other, yeah.
Concealing of information on the behalf of her colleague.
Okay.
Second point is
one by one. Information hidden. Okay, second.
conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
Third, sir, performing her duty impartially on the merit.
Was she performing or was she not performing?
She was not performing at that time.
Can you actually say that? She didn't know, she just walked in and she is sitting there. Would you straight away say that she is not performing?
Not straight away.
She didn't walk up when she had this.
She did not. What's your name? Akhil, yeah, thanks. Akhil, na? Yeah, see, I'm not bad. I have got decent memory, man. But did you get your sheets? Did you get your sheets? Yeah, you talk to them. Yeah. 1 second, we'll come to you. 3 points. She was not performing your duty.
She was performing.
She was performing. But wasn't she performing her duty when she wrote out that letter saying ki I need to pay for the tickets? Was it too late? Too late?
So because the information was concealed.
Information she didn't know, and probably she was caught unaware. She didn't know what to do. Okay, you said not performing her duty. What else?
Breach of trust.
Breach of trust by whom? Breach of trust. Is this case, okay, you just put it, we'll put it on the board and then we'll decide whether we want to use it later or not. But you need to put all of it. Suppose what happens in the exam, if you talk about breach of trust, would you get brownie points or not? You're writing minds? No, you're doing. Who is you? Neeraj. He said, breach of trust. Yes, it's an ethical issue. But if you start writing something on the breach of trust, would the evaluator like your answer? Would he not? If he likes, why? And if he does not, why? Give me an.
He won't like.
Why wouldn't he like?
Because first of all, it's breach of trust or not, it's somebody else's. It's not to do with you. Whether you are right on your part or not. In my point of view, it's bringing emotional.
One second. We'll come to all three of you. Yeah, please.
The two scenarios will be here. First of all, whoever is breaching that trust is a third person.
Okay.
That's one. And second of all, again, emotions is involved over here. And third,
So how emotions are involved?
emotions is that if a breach of trust or something that happens, so that involves a kind of an. So you are emotionally liable, not liable exactly. Kind of you build a person.
You tend to react to certain emotional
I may not
impulse, emotional.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Just hold there.
So when you talk about breach of trust, you're actually talking about that person, division engineer's case and that colleague's case. But the crux of this case study is
The
there was
divisional.
a contract which was to be given, and the lady, she went there and she sat with that person. So that was the core issue.
Core issue. That's the what do you say?
The ethical
Essence of the
the
issue.
time.
Yeah.
Well, initially there was no formal invitation for the engineer, so she just went there out of her interest in the sport. So it's not like it's a point contradicting that she went with her emotions for the favoritism of sport.
No, breach of trust के बारे में बात करेंगे एक second. You can give other inputs later. I asked him if you write about breach of trust, whether the examiner would, actually consider that point at all or no. He will not. But if you keep talking about it, he might take offense for the simple reason the case is of the protagonist. Who is the protagonist in the case? And what is the case? Something else. Breach of trust is done by someone else. There are so many other situations. That is what I said right at the beginning. You need to separate facts from so many other things. Okay? Get it? Okay. Other points now. Now you tell me. Now you give me your points.
So first I was saying she went with her emotion for going with the sport, and second she was not meant to sit at cable company's box. She would have sitten like in official lobby or official arena.
Okay. So she did not have an invite. She had an invite from a friend. She wasn't aware that friend is trying to network her with someone else. So she out of her friend's invitation, she could go. I mean, you become a civil servant tomorrow. If somebody calls, Neeraj calls or Chotelal calls you, आ जाओ यार शाम में वहाँ जाके हम लोग मंडी बाजार मंडी हाउस में जाके कोई ड्रामा देखते हैं, तो you wouldn't straight away have doubts about from where he got the tickets. You just walk in with him and say, you've been doing it all your life as friends. Each one of you keep sharing. So you wouldn't all of a sudden think it is with some intent of networking with somebody, or you run into a wrong situation. No, it doesn't happen that way. But the point is, should you actually accept somebody's ticket? That again comes into this code of conduct. Civil services के अंदर आता है. Civil services code of conduct. Can you accept free tickets? So that is entirely. So that is again a fact. I'm not getting into details because if we had dealt it in the classroom, we would have said it. I had one student here in the classroom. He started fighting with me in the class. What is wrong in taking cricket tickets? Oh, friends will give. He's my friend. And I said, how is he friend? In the case it was showing a contractor became a friend, subsequently he took it. So what? Contractors after a point in time become friends. So you can take. So that is a kind of lack of understanding which people have. That's what happens around, that's what people see, and that's what people think is the right thing, which actually is not. Okay? Okay. Yeah. Other breach of trust. Next. Throw the points.
Sir, can we mention the conflict of values?
Conflict of values in.
Divided into 4 concepts.
Okay.
Like professional ethics versus social ethics, then your impartiality versus favoritism, and peer confidence versus betrayal, and then personal interest versus social welfare.
All of them are valuable. All of them are true. All of them are right. And I'm quite glad that you are bringing all of them up. By writing all of these, would you get any more credits, any more brownie points? Is it actually answering the question that is put at the end? Just look at it. Very often we think, okay, ये तो related है, मैं इसको लिखूंगा कि मैं बहुत अच्छा लिखा है exam. We come out of the hall and you feel good about it. Only after you get your results, you come to know maybe there was something wrong, and you do not know what was wrong because the UPSC doesn't give you your answer sheets, and you do not know, you have not had somebody to tell you what is right or wrong. And you start calling UPSC unpredictable public service, and all that kind of thing happens.
Can we say lack of deontological approach?
Lack of deontological, lack of duty. That is what they all said right at the beginning. It is also, yeah, we'll put that. Keep putting, I'll tell you. This is an exercise which I want you to do in every case. So we are putting, yeah, go ahead.
Using person as a mean to achieve personal end.
By whom?
By the contract, the person who invited.
The third person. We again write the third person. Would the third person matter for the case? No. Is it related to protagonist?
No. Rajesh Chadda wanted her to join in the cable contract.
Okay. Okay.
He tried to use that person to achieve his own personal needs.
That is the case. That is very clear in the case. That's what he is trying to do. But do we write substantially on that part in the answer? I am putting it on the board. Subsequently, we will say which part we have to take and which part will not. No? Third person. I am saying I can just turn it around and.
Issue of woman dignity.
Huh?
Woman dignity.
Chadda making use of friend. Huh? What about women dignity?
This uncomfortable position, uncomfortable sitting next to Chadda.
Was she feeling uncomfortable because she was sitting next to Chadda? One second. No, was that? No. I'm glad you're saying you're being sensitive to gender issues. It's very nice of you. And I think all the 3 ladies in the class will like you for doing that. But she was feeling uncomfortable because of a professional equation, not because of a gender equation. Huh? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
In that case, can we tell it's a peer pressure or social pressure?
That's what that actually brought her, and she came into a very awkward situation because hockey is her favorite sport, and probably they were sharing tickets earlier on. It is a ticket from a friend. I wouldn't mind if you call me. You wouldn't mind if I call you. We just walk in. I wouldn't imagine that you would have had a track with her, and she has, roped you to lure me, and I wouldn't have imagined. I'll come with you. Suddenly, this is a scheme made by her. Now I will feel uncomfortable sitting next to her, or to him, or whatever. Okay. Yeah.
Just one point. What you mentioned before, sir, that Chadda tried to rope this Pradhan in to get your Padma for this contract or not. This is a perception, right? It's not nowhere mentioned in the thing. We can all understand. But it may be such out of good faith he called up just because she's an important person.
Good, very good question. Even if somebody has called you out of good faith, I'll give you one example. I'm a chairman of a selecting committee which is selecting teachers for the high school or secondary school in the state. I'm the chairman. Okay? Chote Lal is appearing for the exam. Apurva is appearing. Neeraj is appearing for the 3 of you are appearing at the exam. It so happens Chote Lal is known to me through a friend or through a relative. Chote Lal is, let's say, he is my brother's son. Okay, if I am a chairman of a selecting committee, I should be jolly good old fellow to have Chote Lal as brother's son, that big. Okay. Now, if Chote Lal is coming into the interview, I am the chairman and I know him. What is the situation now? Conflict of interest. Okay, I am a person of very high credibility, absolute integrity. At no point in time I would do anything which goes against the rules or the ethics or the moral code of conduct or whatever. I conduct the exam in absolute transparency. Chote Lal gets selected. Okay? Akhil was also part of this, he was fourth guy. Akhil says कि भाई दाल में कुछ तो काला है. Regardless of how clean and transparent was the situation has given room for doubt now. And he is quite right in doubting because he doesn't know my absolute integrity. For him, all the information that is available is Chote Lal is his chairman's relative. देखा उसने अंदर कर लिया, अपने लोगों को select कर लिया. Okay? If Pradhan is a good, out of goodwill, he is called Padma Sharma, purely out of good intention. If somebody sees tomorrow and if Chadda gets the cable contract, what would people say? देखो भाई दोनों चेयर में बॉक्स में बैठे हुए थे, मजे ले रहे हैं, हॉकी मैच देख रहे हैं, इंडिया जर्मनी की, कुछ तो है इनका बीच में. How? No, that's the tricky part of ethics, isn't it? When you become civil servant, you got to be aware of all these issues. You can't give room for doubt. You can't give room for doubt. There are umpteen number of times where I have to forego a good cricket match or a good tennis match just because it was coming from a friend. And now since I have become a civil servant, I no longer can have those equations. I was a tennis player for many years. I was a professional tennis player myself. I played international tennis for 4-5 long years. Okay. After playing tennis for those many years, I came and appeared at civil service exam. It was just, I was probably lucky that I got selected. So somebody who's played tennis for 5 long years can clear civil services exam. Any one of you can, all of you can clear exam. So have no doubt about it. So 6 साल तक मैं कुछ पढ़ा नहीं था. सिर्फ रेलवे रिजर्वेशन फॉर्म लिखता था. That's all I did. बैंक में सिग्नेचर करता था. That's all writing that I had done. न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ता था. न्यूज़पेपर में हम लोगों के टेनिस रिजल्ट देखते थे, बाकी के ने. So 6 long years I've done that. Traveled around the country, around Asia, around Southeast Asia, and came back and wrote the exam. So I have a lot of friends who are from many who are all industrialists. No, but I'm a civil servant. I no longer can have that equation. We meet and we have dinners. That's different, but publicly, you can't.
The judiciary has a statement, justice, it's not about doing justice.
It should seem to be as done. It has to be. So, in a chairman kind of situation, when I'm the chairman, what do I do then? I recuse myself from that position. Okay, Chote Lal, aajo, good luck to you. Amir, come, you become the chairman. Someone else, let someone else come and do it. He will also conduct with merit. Since he's already got merit, he will get selected. So Akhil will say, okay, chalo bhai, theek hai, ye log to theek hi hain yaar, not so bad after all. Maybe next time I will try and do a good job at it. Fair enough? Clear? Yeah, okay. More points here, please. Fan AC initial, right? Yeah. Lights off, is it? Okay. Okay. Other points, Ravi.
Lack of due diligence on the part of Padma Sharma.
Not being smart, not being attentive, lack of due diligence, which again we can say unbecoming of an officer, lack of due diligence. Okay. कुछ you don't have any argument like the guy that had with me कि tickets are free, वो तो क्या उसमें क्या problem है उस type का क्या?
At that page, is it socially unethical to reject the proposal of that match?
Social,
Like if a friend is coming to me and is offering to watch a match, so is it ethical or unethical society wise?
Socially unethical नहीं होता, social etiquette होता है. So as a social etiquette, you might find it delicate not to say, "Arey bhai," you might not want to lie. You don't want to say something and get away from the situation. That social discomfort you might be there. But would you endure social comfort at the cost of being unethical? Socially, you might feel awkward. But being ethical, being upright is a not very easy job. It is a tough one. Easier thing to do is to become unethical and socially become comfortable. आओ भाई चटा चाय के चाय पीते हैं, हाँ दोनों मस्ती हरे मजा चाय वाप पी सकते हैं, socially comfortable. Ethically smashed.
Servicing emotional intelligence.
Absolutely, very good. और कुछ? Put all the points. Yeah, go ahead, shoot. Missing an part, that's what he's saying.
She did show it.
She showed it. Okay, she showed it, we'll put it. She showed intelligence, we'll see. She displayed, expressed or displayed. Okay?
Even she mentioned it right before that she won't be participating in anything to do with the contract.
She did that.
Yeah, she did that. So
And going back to your own question right at the beginning, maybe it was a good gesture that somebody has given, and if Chedda had actually given out of goodwill, and by she raking up the issue, she actually made it even more worse. Go ahead. You are here.
my opinion.
No. I'm saying right at the beginning you said maybe she had, going by that logic, going in that stream of thought, if he had actually called, invited out of goodwill, but raking up this thing, and why should she say, okay, this will not happen, so don't expect anything, no, I'm not doing anything. She actually created social, yeah. The best thing is to get away, that's all. You might feel uncomfortable, but in the big situation, it is always better to get away. है ना? ऐसा भी नहीं कि you won't be able to see that hockey match again. You can always come back and see hockey match again. You can see it on TV. You can see it on so many places. But if somebody says that comment that you had been there, like अखिल के जैसे एक बार बोल दिया तो उसको कैसे मिटा पाओगे? Yeah.
Fail to anticipate the intention of this friend.
Fail to anticipate. That is what Ravi also said. Ravi also said that is lack of due diligence. Fail to anticipate. We all land up in such kind of situations. It has happened with me many times. I mean, people all around. Another thing what happens in service is right at the beginning, people test you out. The hardest time for a civil servant is first 3-4 years. Your seniors test you out, your colleagues test you out, the people around test you out. If you have sailed through those 3-4 years, you will have a successful life. You will get a few incidents here and there every now and then, that's okay. But the tough part is first 3-4 years. You fall this way or that way. People always test you out. Uninformed decision making with regard to what?
With regard to when the first Padma Sarma accepted the offer and violation of conduct rules also.
No, I'm saying in conduct rules you are not supposed to accept gifts beyond a certain value. If they are from third party, if they are not from your family, and if they are not, I mean, Pradhan is a friend, so obviously if the value of the ticket was beyond something, she had no right to accept it. Even as we speak today, there is what is called as Toshe Khana in the president's estate. Toshe Khana. So when the president or any of the state dignitaries get gifts from outside, all of them are supposed to be, they are supposed to be given to the Toshe Khana. But if the dignitary decides to keep them because it is given to him, if he likes it, he can keep it provided he pays the value of that item. Because it is given to him, he can't just keep it. That is the service conduct rule. It's a different story how people keep it. Nobody raised this question. A very small section of people raised this question when Narendra Modi was given that suit, which was supposed to be 10 lakhs. People were saying it is a gift. Subsequently, he disposed it of. That's a different story. But no, if he wanted to give, he should have paid for it. How it was managed, that's a different story altogether. Probably people who gave were not aware of it. Probably Prime Minister himself was not aware of it. Conduct rule के अंदर आप पैसे दे के रख सकते हो, so probably he would have paid and kept it because it was a, notwithstanding what the media was talking about it, it was a different item. So maybe he would have paid and kept it to himself. It takes different flares. Okay, any other point? Now you have done this due diligence, you have all the points. What is relevant and what is relevant is more important. So let's also talk few points about opinion. Nobody has talked about what she should have done. Was that all right on her part to have written the letter, subsequently asking for the tickets? I'll pay the price. Yeah? Is that okay? That was a good part. Good part is that she wrote a letter. Was that enough? Was that enough? Maybe not. Should she have done something better than that? What was that? What else can she do after this event?
She could have contacted with organizers to know the value of ticket.
She could have done that also. That's the operational part of it. That's the operational. I'm talking about the ethical part of it. She could have contacted organizers, got to know about the ticket, and she could have paid that also. That's also option. Okay, we'll write that also. Anything else? I'm looking for one strong reply.
Complain about him so that he further does not repeat the same with some other officers.
Pradhan. Warn Pradhan. Okay.
Inform the higher authorities
And do what after that? Yes. Inform higher authorities and recuse from the case. So you have now you have enough material. Some of it can go into the answer, some of it need not go into the answer. This can go into the answer. This can also go into the answer. This can go into the answer. Exit. This can go. Information hidden. Now you decide. You have only 30 minutes. How much of material you want to put into the answer? Some of it you will use it. Some of you will not use it. You will use this. You will not use this. You will use this. Conflict of interest. This you will not use. Maybe you will use part of it. Maybe you will use this. Maybe you will use this. So you decide which items you want to use it. Then set them aside. Okay. They are all here. They mark them. And don't write right at the back of the pages. Mark them. Now you come to the third part. The critical part of how you will organize your answer. All of this is the due diligence that you have done so far. Okay? I'm just wiping it. If in case somebody wanted to write it down, I don't know. If it's not too bad handwriting, you might want to note it down. Now you have done a lot of homework. You have done enough due diligence. You have done iteration. You have chosen various opinions. She should have, somebody said she should not have, she should have picked up the tickets, but majority are thinking she was on a wrong side. Does anybody think she was right? Yeah.
I think looking at the perspective, she was right. Looking at what has happened.
Okay. So there's somebody who thinks she was right.
But reactionary policies were correct.
Reactionary were right, but people say she was wrong. Majority say she was wrong. Whether going to the game itself was right or wrong, going to the game was not necessarily wrong, provided it was within the rules. but once she realized it is not in the confines of ethical code, continuing was wrong, not coming away was wrong. Okay, sitting down and writing a letter was okay, but that writing a letter was not enough. Not informing seniors was wrong. All those things, right? So you need to have this two kind of opinion now. When you are marking a tick, you mark whether I don't want to use the word positive or opinion, right or wrong, you can say. Now come to the organizing your answer. When you organize your answer, take a look at this. उसको बुला लेना एक सेकंड. Sorry यार, I'm asking you for help every now and then. इसको लाने के लिए बोलो. See, that is smartness. Good. I think it's working. अरे वो लाना वो शीट अभी जो दिए थे लोग. Pass it on. Yeah, thank you. See, when you look at that section 2, section B, that is where you have case studies. You have 6 case studies, and to answer each one, how much time do you have? 15 minutes. What do you do with this 15 minutes? Sorry? 15 मिनट्स के अंदर कितना टाइम आप अभी जो हम सारा वो किए थे ना, all that was due diligence, how much time would you use for all that? Akhil? 5 minutes. All of you getting my question? I'm saying you have 15 minutes. So out of this 15 minutes, how much time would you use for organizing all this sort? Somebody says 5. Who says more or less? What's your name, man? Ganesh. How much time would you use for organizing? Clinical. We are talking about a clinical strikes now. Okay, you got to be very clinical. You can't be giving 6-7 minutes. That is not very clinical. Okay. 6-7. Somebody more than that? 3.5 minutes you will. I'm very curious. How did you arrive at 3.5? Why not 3 and why not 4?
I just want to present my answer after that. I just need some different logical thinking and also that I can.
You want to need logical?
All those thinking and all to put my answer in organized way. So that I just want, I just want this.
No, that is thinking all that only I am talking. So for that, how much time you need? For that, you need 3.5. Oh no, I'm asking. I mean, I'm not saying any which way. That when you say 3.5, I'm saying, what is the reason for 3.5? How did you arrive at 3.5? It's okay. It's okay. Good. Anybody more than 8 minutes? Anybody wants to be at 10? 10. Tell me why.
More time to this part. Like,
You need more part.
part to writing.
Akhil, you agree with him? He says 10 minutes.
So if you can write it in 5 minutes, then it's fine for
Good.
me. Writing
Good.
is-
So whether you can write the remaining, whatever you organize in 5 minutes, whether you can write it or not, how will you know? Have you done it, those who have written mains? Yeah, please.
When you ask me that why 3.5 minutes, here for 150 words you are taking 7 minutes. So obviously I do need more time to write these 250 words.
Okay.
So for that I just want to know.
Okay,
make
okay,
sure that,
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, good, good, okay. It was generic for all questions, not for this particular one. You need to know what is your speed, and very often we do not know what our speed. We keep reading various material from different centers, from different textbooks, from different authors. We are amassing a lot of knowledge, we are amassing a lot of literature, and we assume that we can write it because all our life we have written. We are experts in writing exams, aren't we? We have written 7th बोले कि ये बहुत critical है, 10th लोग बोले कि ये बहुत ही important, 10th फिर 12th में बोले फिर engineering अब आके सर पे खड़ा हुआ है ये exam. So all our life we have done. We know we can write, but have we written that in 5 minutes? What is our speed? We haven't done. So you need to separately do your exercise and doing what is your speed. In how many minutes can you write how many words? When you get down to write your answer, you are doing what? Doing only writing. You are no longer thinking when you are writing. If you start thinking while you are writing, again, what are you doing? You are digging your grave. By the end of the exam, you only have to fall into your grave. That's all. You have got no other choice left. Okay. You need to know your speed separately. But why is that you need more time to organize yourself? I'm not saying you have 5 or 6 or 7. You organize yourself depending on what your speeding right is, how you want to think. What's your name, man? Amrit. Amrit, you need to do an exercise and find out what is your writing speed. And I'm not saying 3.5 is right or 7 is right or 9 is right, but I will share with you one statement which a legendary freedom fighter of America, Abraham Lincoln, once said, if I have, what was that?
If I have a time to fight, I'll like fight less and polish it. Polish the stone.
If I have 10 hours to cut a tree, I will sharpen my axe for 7 hours. You got to sharpen yourself. Once you have sharpened, writing is, you are just writing, that's all. You have organized your thoughts, एक के बाद क्या होना है पूरा बना लिया, 5 मिनट में लिख के खत्म करो. You can't, writing के time पे you can't be thinking. And if you are thinking, you would not be doing any better than what you have already thought. Suddenly, Einstein has not come into your mind all of a sudden. Okay? Nor Rahul Gandhi will come into your mind. You will not go either way. Okay? So you got to be very, very clear, due diligence and practice sharp within. So 7 minutes, 8 minutes, ideally when we used to write, 36 minutes was the time that we had to write for mains exam when I wrote geography and all. I normally, you know how much time I organized myself? 36 minutes was the time that was required for us to write 300 words, 600 words. Organizing was, I would roughly take about 2 to 3 minutes to read an answer, read the question completely, and how many parts it has got, what areas. I would think roughly stretching up to 20 minutes. Organizing. I would write my answer in 12 minutes. And remaining 2-3 minutes, I would do the review. कहाँ पे कहीं cut करना है तो. That is how I organized. I had to do that because I was not smart, I was not intelligent. I had come away from tennis, and all I knew my life was play 8 hours in a day and sleep 8 hours. That's all I have done. Suddenly I was amongst smart people like you around the country. 6 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whatever people were writing. And the year I was selected, there were only 370 that were selected. So I had to beat all of them, and I had to beat all of them how? I had to be clinical. Not 3.5 such clinical, I was not that clinical. Okay, right. So we have decided, now we got to do this part. This organizing part also you should need, this comes in 3 areas. Okay. First part is one side of the opinion, the various opinions that you have drawn, you will pick up and write this opinion, that, and the second part is the opposing opinion, and the third part is what you would conclude and why you would conclude. Now these 3 parts should contain something which is very important. What is that? We have, easy for you to remember, what comes after this? Huh? What is Usain Bolt got to do with this? Good, one is speed. Anybody? Each is an acronym. Bolt is, you got to incorporate both sides of the opinion. That is something that you can never miss in the answer. What is L? You have to highlight, you have to flag whether it is legal. In spite of being legal, it is ethical. Why do you need to do that? I'll tell you in a minute. And what is T? Theory. Which theory is this? Which approach is which theory? These 3 parts, 2 opinions will reflect here. Legal part and the theory part can be interspersed in any of these 3 areas. By doing this, you are getting a very, very comprehensive answer in which you are doing few things. Number 1, you have shown the examiner that you have thought through your answer. It is not something that you have just scribbled. Okay? It's almost like when I mention 5 minutes, 7 minutes or 8 minutes, what you have not prepared, it's very difficult to translate. Let me use an example. If Sehwag has got that, what is that shot that he hits on the square cut for a sixer? He's known for it, right? He's famous for it. That's what he does. The day that shot is not coming, if he were to try and use a leg glance, there's no way that he can produce a leg glance. He might try, but the thing that you have practiced all your life, if you're not able to produce that, is it possible that something that you've not even known that can you produce? It's very difficult. I mean, you have a bad day. If you're a soccer player and you had a bad day and you're playing as a forward and you're not able to produce as a forward, is there any chance that you would produce as a fullback? You're never a fullback. How can you produce? You will not be able to do it. So assuming that you will fall back on something and do it, it's difficult. That is the reason I was saying you need to have a structured answer and prepare and know your speed. Okay. 3 things that it addresses is, 1, it gives the examiner an idea, okay, this student has actually done his due diligence. The answer is structured. He is touching upon more than one opinion. It could be 2 opinions or 3. And finally, you are touching also on the best is you know the difference between what is legal and what is ethical. And the best part at the end is you are also touching on the theoretical part of it, that whether it is deontological or how you use it, I leave it to you. Okay, you say, okay, as per the deontological approach, this is the one. I will use the deontological approach and suggest him to do this. In a teleological approach, this is this. You make a reference. Tell that fellow, tell that evaluator that you know the answer. The trick here is to make that fellow aware that you know the answer. If you are not able to do that, then you would have failed. You might have written many other things like what Love was saying. Pranav. Okay? You might be able to say so many things. You must have done PhD in philosophy, but is that what he is asking? When I ask a question about whether you will do 3,000 people a service or 30,000 people a service, you are caught. You will be caught. But how do you get around? By saying all this, evaluator will know, okay, bhaiya, here is a guy who knows what is the scope of his work. Here is a guy who knows what ethical theories are. Here is a guy who can see that there is a second opinion, that there is a third opinion. Your target should be, your mandate should be to secure marks in the exam. Okay, the best way you can secure your marks is touching about every area. There is another thing which I always give this example. It is not as relevant here as it is, let's say, in sociology or geography. If there is a theory, a particular thinker, a theory about Karl Marx is asked, or Malinowski is asked, or in plate tectonics a particular theory is asked. If you write only about describing about the how plates are moving and not the various theories which have refuted it, you might please the guy who is pro that theory, and if there is an evaluator, let's say the evaluator from Calcutta or from Gujarat University comes, and he is somebody who has done a lot of work on plate tectonics on a particular theory, and if he is the evaluator, he sees the evaluation and he says, okay, this guy has written about plate tectonics a little, but he has written so much about the critical criticism of theory, this guy doesn't know much, so he may not take you lightly. But if you write only on plate tectonics, he might like your answer very much and not critical. There could be exactly opposite guy who thinks. So you can't take this risk. It is not your personality, your knowledge that is tested in exam. It is his personality, what kind of day he or she had with her husband or wife, that is being tested. They have a bad day and you have a bad day. And if you have touched upon everything in a reasonable manner, they think, okay, I evaluate answers so many times, and let me tell you, the minute I see an answer which is slightly tangential, it's automatic, my mind switches off. And the rest of the evaluation is only, you might have written wonderful things subsequently, but you would have not given yourself a chance because the other person is switched off. Your fate is in his hands now. You keep writing RTS to UPSC, I want to see, you keep doing it. But for that day you're done, isn't it? Okay, we'll take 5 or 10 minutes break. We'll come back and we have one more case. That case we will do in a fully comprehensive manner, right? Okay. Okay. Protagonist is a normal citizen of the country. If you are an officer or if you are somebody, they will always give in the case. Okay, this was also a question that was asked. I think 2014 or something they had asked this question. 13, huh? 13? It should be written here, 13. Okay. Now, what is the structure with that we talked about? We will purely, I need to close the session at 7. We'll work backwards. And before closing that session at 7, I need 18 minutes of a video clipping that you will have to watch. Some of you have seen it. Some of you have not seen it. Okay. So we have roughly 20-25 minutes. We will go through the structure of doing this case, okay, in 20 minutes. Is that fair? Okay. So what was our structure when we started? Oh, we said something, right? Case, facts, emotions, legaler. First we got to do this part. Second part is due diligence or iteration. And the third part, bold or using the bold, writing the answer in. Is that all right? Okay, now start from here. What is the case? Violating norms. And in a way, I'm glad that you guys picked up this case. So I'll tell you in a minute why. Okay.
And so, there is also one more thing regarding no clarity on the law front itself, because ILO guidelines says age of child 18 years and Indian guidelines says, Indian norm says age of a child 14 years. There is also no parity between the norms.
There is no parity, but there is a clarity, which is what?
Also not there, sir, about household work and.
Okay, but that clarity subsequently is given now, right? Okay.
That's why they are violating, circumventing the law.
Okay.
And so that much.
Okay. Any other person?
Also a case of concealing the fact, the parent, that person was caught red-handed.
What are the, like we've said, what are the facts? Labor laws, ILO laws, Indian laws, age factor, and the household activity, the type of activity. What else?
Concealing also facts.
Directly lying on the face of such a.
Okay. Owner's credibility. Okay.
Wrong projection.
Wrong projection.
Utilizing loopholes is a lot.
Loopholes.
Child exploit.
Yeah.
Over here, we'll follow the law of the land. So if ILO mentions 18 years and if Indian mention 14 years, you don't have to do anything with ILO. We have to mention India particularly. So that is clear.
No, yeah. Oh, that is clear.
Like this is my perspective.
Correct.
So we'll follow the law of the land.
Exactly.
14 years over here, that has been mentioned. And over here, the person, the owner, is already committing a mistake because he is addressing them as their relative and their cousin. So he is already at fault. Further on deep inquiry, I get to know that that is false information. So as an individual over here, as the question asked, to bring out and discuss the ethical issue involved in above cases. So the very first thing, the ethical issue that comes up is child right versus his business motive and profit. So then it goes for again the diversion.
That is the conflict you are mentioning. Yes. Straight away talk only about the ethical issue.
Ethical issue first.
We are not talking about conflict between his motive and what is the ethical issue? Straight away.
Ethical issue is like degrading the law of the land for putting up his own business.
Degrading the law of the land is nothing like that. Not obeying law of the land. What is it? What is that? If you're not obeying the law of the land? Illegal. Illegal. Okay. What is ethical here? Ethical or unethical?
Unethical is the exploitation of children.
Exploitation of children and
Who are less than 14 years old.
that is legal part of it. See, dekho, since you guys have not gone through my class, that's why you will know it. That's why I made it as simple as possible. I mean, it's as if you've been given instant food. When I say bold, the legal part, we're talking about 14 years to 18 years age, whatever you're talking about legal part. What you're talking about is also about legal part. What is the ethical issue involved?
Ethical here, he is telling them as relatives.
That is one.
Okay. Guiding public.
What is taking the right to life of a child, taking away the right to live a life, taking away the childhood of a child, that is the ethical issue. It's almost like taking away life, somebody's life. That is where the whole, the linchpin, the essence, everything revolves around. You are taking away somebody's right to somebody's right to life. That's the crux, right? By taking away, what are you doing? That straight away it is unethical. There are some laws that are provided to protect, whether he is obeying them or not. If he is not obeying them, it is illegal. So like what he was saying, 14 years is Indian law and 18 years is international law. So the international laws, the ethics around international laws is 18 years, which means the general consensus is children below 18 should not be put. When we already know there is a loophole in our country itself. That's the legal part of it. So the question is ethical issue. Ethical issue is that it is unethical to employ a child, even if the law was permitting to employ children about 14 and above. That's where you should start. Okay.
We can say
you're getting, I want you to get into the argument part of it. You have a lot of, I appreciate that you have studied a lot and you have a lot of ideas about the nuances of ethics. But where do you start is the question. Okay?
Can we say even if they are employing children more than 15 years of age, still it is ethically wrong?
That is where. Good Ganesh. That's what I'm trying to say. Even if the law permits for you to employ children above 14 years of age, even if the law permits, if you are employing, it is still unethical. And what is supporting you there is slowly some from outside he has put that part. Getting my point? Sorry.
How we can correlate economy, the growing economy due to this industry with our opinions? Can we say even though it is like a boom for economy in that area?
It contributes to the economy of the area by employing children.
But it's unethical.
It is unethical. Everything that contributes to the economy of a region, would you employ? By cutting down the forests, by building industries, it provides to growth of economy. Would you do it? Today, we have a problem of population. A critical or an ideal population would be somewhere, I don't know what it is, whatever our population 1.2, and if it is less than 1, if so much is more population, we would develop faster by, let's say, removing. Would you do it? Like Markandeya Kaju says, take Kashmir and Bihar, would you do it? You wouldn't do it, isn't it? That is the conflict. The conflict of growth versus ethics. So you come across this every so often in every sphere of your life. It is an ethical code of conduct. Which ethical code of conduct hits with growth, with development, with your requirement of industrial production or whatever. Isn't it? That is a challenge, right? You have so many times, so often facing these conflicts. You have to work on this while remaining ethical. Society has to progress, but progress while remaining ethical. Okay? Yeah. So we got all the facts. We remove the emotional part out of it. What is the emotional part here at least? At least there was one point. The emotional part is बेचारे भूखे हैं, गरीब हैं, मर जाएंगे, family मर जाएगी, भूखे हैं. We are saying while it's economical part, it's emotional part too. But the larger part of ethics is you are taking away somebody's life. Right to childhood, you are snatching somebody's right to childhood, if I want to use the right word. Human rights. Hai na? Okay. Facts and emotions we have it. Second, you come and see what is legal and ethical. Straight away, it is illegal. While it is unethical, it is illegal also. You will have to mention this also when you talk about it. So now we come to the second part. Tell me here. Should or should not, if you go with consequential, if you go with deontological, maybe you want to impress the examiner and say you also understand doctrine of double effect. Deontological.
Ideological is
Go ahead, sorry.
Inform the superior authority immediately after.
What you do here? Informs. It is. We don't know. We don't know about the protagonist. Who will you inform? Superior in charge. You will inform the concerned authorities. Yeah, you should use that word, concerned authorities, because we do not know whether we are part of the government or we are outside the government. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, you had some question.
I was asking his divisions.
No, I said you need to put, well, we are doing iteration, you put lot of points, na? Keep putting points. He said inform authorities. Okay.
You asking the reactions?
Yeah, we'll put all the points, then we'll organize. So we'll organize these points and then put them in the answer finally.
Differentiation, that teleological and consequential, should we put that?
It's not necessarily you have to do that in every case. Okay. You put out all the issues which are related to ethics here, and then you mention finally when you're mentioning by taking deontological approach, this is what it is. By if we take teleological, this is what it is. But you would go by
I'm sorry, deontology.
99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, you have to say your deontological. Service conduct rules, duty, ethics, you can't be saying consequences. मेरे बेटे को मैं नौकरी दे दूंगा, मैं उसको नौकरी दे दूंगा, वो no. All those who are telling you answer ऐसा लिखो, ये करो, वो करो, they think because they do not know what service conduct rules are. There are conduct rules for ministers, there are conduct rules for civil servants, there are conduct rules for members of the parliament, there are service conduct rules for members of legislative assemblies. Okay? Foundational values of civil servant is a paragraph in the chapter, in the syllabus. Service conduct rules is a very, very big part of the. Without understanding service conduct rules, if you answer this, that is the reason you have difficulty. Okay, you inform the authorities, one, then
Inform the local police station and report for a raid.
police authorities दोनों same ही है. Okay.
Then spread the message using mass media, requesting them not to comply with the law.
So,
severe penal provision will be
social media is what you have. Mass media, if you have access. Okay.
spread the land of the law of the land.
Sorry, please.
Involve child NGOs for the rescue and rehabilitation.
Involve child NGOs. Probably child. You are going there as a child NGO itself. That is also not case. Involve NGOs. Okay. If it is a consequential approach, what should one do here?
Request first approach the owner.
No, just go back a step back. If it's a consequential approach, you will say that you are saying that these children are feeding their families. So we will ensure that they don't work in hazardous industry, but we will allow them to work in the industry so that they still feed their families. While they are ethical, they are conforming to the law. We are allowing them. So as a consequence, it's okay. So that would be consequential approach. Deontological approach would be? It is unethical. Either under 14 or under 18. No. When you mention this, like the evaluator will know, okay, here is a boy who knows the difference. Here is a boy whose thoughts are clear. He is not getting riddled in.
So even by consequential approach, this act cannot be justified because it will be having very disadvantageous long-term prospect for children.
The act, yeah.
Yeah. This is what I want to say.
That's what I'm saying. Even when law permits, even when it is legal, it is still not ethical. That's what I'm saying. The whole idea when I said right at the beginning, even things which are legal are not necessarily ethical. So when we discussed, we said that even if the law is permitting, they should not even be allowed.
I am just saying that even if we apply consequentialism, then the consequence is going to be very bad if we allow this to happen. So,
okay, do that. You say even if we allow, it will be very bad. So that's why we should not allow.
Your consequence will also be bad. You are saying that
Agreed. I'm saying in consequential approach, if we allow, it could be bad. If we allow, it could be good also. Partly good. He will take care of the family, so we will allow. As taking a consequential approach, it will be very bad, so we will not allow. We will not allow in a consequential approach. We will allow in consequential approach. Got it? So I'm saying that you express your awareness of what the issue is. Don't harp too much on theory part of it, but you got to impress that guy, so you know it. You have to tell him. There's no other way. Only you can tell him that you know it. You write the exam. नीरज आके नहीं बोलेगा कि सर आनंद को पता था. मैं जानता हूँ सर उसको आंसर पता है सर. He will not tell. उसने क्लास में डिस्कस किया था सर उसको पता है teleological सर उसने सवाल भी किया था. There's nobody to tell you that. You only have to say that in your. Okay.
So will public opinion get the law changed?
That's what happened to Sati.
Also writing to senior authority about the matter.
Particularly this case, the recent law that has come.
Hazardous industry.
House enterprise. 14 years or above allowed in house enterprise. So it is again.
Law will again people have to agitate. Just because law has allowed, it still does not mean it is ethical. That's what I'm saying. Isn't it? It still does not.
Can a justification we put, looking at the ground scenario, ground zero scenario, applying this for household enterprises.
Sorry. I think I missed one point here. Where is my... 1 second here. I was seeing for something else. Okay. You remind me, you said, no, what opinion we should give it. And there is one answer for it. We'll finish off with that at the end. Yeah.
That's it. Looking at the ground zero perspective, looking at the recent law that has been passed, though it is conflicting with the right to education and all those, but as there is a clause mentioned over there, they can be employed 14 and above for household enterprises, looking at the ground scenario for all those like low-income families where they...
So it is still unethical if the law is allowing, but you may not be able to do it, but you still have to work towards removing even that. That should be your answer. Because law is allowing that, I'll sit back and take that as an excuse. No, it's not allowed. That would be what we call as ethical traps. There is a concept called as ethical traps. I hope you know it. So you start justifying many actions as acceptable because they are legal or they are acceptable. Those things are called ethical traps. There is a complete... okay. Anything else?
Sir, make him aware of the ethical issues and suggesting him the consequences of the wrong he is doing.
Yeah, educate him.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now when we have to organize here, how will you organize? One side of the opinion is what? It should be allowed. The other side would be? It shouldn't be. And you would agree, you would put whatever is your opinion, giving justifications of all the argument. The punchline, Akhil, the punchline is whatever decision that you take in this answer, the litmus test is the way to measure your decision, whether it is acceptable or not. Imagine if this decision were to be published as a headline next day in the paper. Would you be proud of it, or would you want to go under the bed and hide? How would you want your decision to be reflected in the paper? Would you be proud if this decision were to be discussed in the newspaper? Would it be acceptable? Just cross-verify. Think, क्या ये decision जो मैं अभी ये opinion लिख रहा हूँ, will it be acceptable? If it is acceptable, then you have completed your answer. You have done your job. है ना? Agreed? So since we are running out of time, I'll just play one small clipping for your benefit.
To an early writer. And when I began to write at about the age of 7, stories in pencil with crayon illustrations that my poor mother was obligated to read, I wrote exactly the kinds of stories I was reading. All my characters were white and blue-eyed. They played in the snow. They ate apples. And they talked a lot about the weather, how lovely it was that the sun had come out. Now this despite the fact that I lived in Nigeria. I had never been outside Nigeria. We didn't have snow. We ate mangoes. And we never talked about the weather because there was no need to. My characters also drank a lot of ginger beer because the characters in the British books I read drank ginger beer. Never mind that I had no idea what ginger beer was. And for many years afterwards, I would have a desperate desire to taste ginger beer. But that is another story. What this demonstrates, I think, is how impressionable and vulnerable we are in the face of a story, particularly as children. Because all I had read were books in which characters were foreign, I had become convinced that books, by their very nature, had to have foreigners in them and had to be about things with which I could not personally identify. Now, things changed when I discovered African books. There weren't many of them available, and they weren't quite as easy to find as the foreign books, but because of writers like Chinua Achebe and Kamaralaye, I went through a mental shift in my perception of literature. I realized that people like me, girls with skin the color of chocolate, whose kinky hair could not form ponytails, could also exist in literature. I started to write about things I recognized. Now, I loved those American and British books I read. They stirred my imagination. They opened up new worlds for me. But the unintended consequence was that I did not know that people like me could exist in literature. So what the discovery of African writers did for me was this. It saved me from having a single story of what books are. I come from a conventional middle-class Nigerian family. My father was a professor. My mother was an administrator. And so we had, as was the norm, living domestic help who would often come from nearby rural villages. So the year I turned 8, we got a new houseboy. His name was Fide. The only thing my mother told us about him was that his family was very poor. My mother sent yams and rice and our old clothes to his family. And when I didn't finish my dinner, my mother would say, "Finish your food. Don't you know people like Fide's family have nothing?" So I felt enormous pity for Fide's family. Then one Saturday, we went to his village to visit. And his mother showed us a beautifully patterned basket made of dyed raffia that his brother had made. I was startled. It had not occurred to me that anybody in his family could actually make something. All I had heard about them was how poor they were, so that it had become impossible for me to see them as anything else but poor. Their poverty was my single story of them. Years later, I thought about this when I left Nigeria to go to university in the United States. I was 19. My American roommate was shocked by me. She asked where I had learned to speak English so well and was confused when I said that Nigeria happened to have English as its official language. She asked if she could listen to what she called my tribal music and was consequently very disappointed when I produced my tape of Mariah Carey. She assumed that I did not know how to use a stove. What struck me was this. She had felt sorry for me even before she saw me. Her default position toward me, as an African, was a kind of patronizing, well-meaning pity. My roommate had a single story of Africa, a single story of catastrophe. In this single story, there was no possibility of Africans being similar to her in any way, no possibility of feelings more complex than pity, no possibility of a connection as human equals. I must say that before I went to the US, I didn't consciously identify as African. But in the US, whenever Africa came up, people turned to me, never mind that I knew nothing about places like Namibia. But I did come to embrace this new identity, and in many ways I think of myself now as African, although I still get quite irritable when Africa is referred to as a country, the most recent example being my otherwise wonderful flight from Lagos 2 days ago, in which there was an announcement on the Virgin flight about their charity walk in India, Africa, and other countries. So after I had spent some years in the US as an African, I began to understand my roommate's response to me. If I had not grown up in Nigeria, and if all I knew about Africa were from popular images, I too would think that Africa was a place of beautiful landscapes, beautiful animals, and incomprehensible people fighting senseless wars, dying of poverty and AIDS, unable to speak for themselves, and waiting to be saved by a kind white foreigner. I would see Africans in the same way that I, as a child, had seen Fide's family. This single story of Africa ultimately comes, I think, from Western literature. Now here's a quote from the writing of a London merchant called John Locke, who sailed to West Africa in 1561 and kept a fascinating account of his voyage. After referring to the black Africans as beasts who have no houses, he writes, "They are also people without heads, having their mouths and eyes in their breasts." Now, I've laughed every time I've read this, and one must admire the imagination of John Locke. But what is important about his writing is that it represents the beginning of a tradition of telling African stories in the West, a tradition of sub-Saharan Africa as a place of negatives, of difference, of darkness, of people who, in the words of the wonderful poet Rudyard Kipling, are half devil, half child. And so I began to realize that my American roommate must have, throughout her life, seen and heard different versions of this single story. As had a professor who once told me that my novel was not authentically African. Now, I was quite willing to contend that there were a number of things wrong with the novel, that it had failed in a number of places, but I had not quite imagined that it had failed at achieving something called African authenticity. In fact, I did not know what African authenticity was. The professor told me that my characters were too much like him, an educated and middle-class man. My characters drove cars. They were not starving. Therefore, they were not authentically African. But I must quickly add that I too am just as guilty on the question of the single story. A few years ago, I visited Mexico from the US. The political climate in the US at the time was tense, and there were debates going on about immigration. And, as often happens in America, immigration became synonymous with Mexicans. There were endless stories of Mexicans as people who were fleecing the healthcare system, sneaking across the border, being arrested at the border, that sort of thing. I remember walking around on my first day in Guadalajara, watching the people going to work, rolling up tortillas in the marketplace, smoking, laughing. I remember first feeling slight surprise, and then I was overwhelmed with shame. I realized that I had been so immersed in the media coverage of Mexicans that they had become one thing in my mind, the abject immigrant. I had bought into the single story of Mexicans, and I could not have been more ashamed of myself. So that is how to create a single story. Show a people as one thing, as only one thing, over and over again, and that is what they become. It is impossible to talk about the single story without talking about power. There is a word, an Igbo word, that I think about whenever I think about the power structures of the world, and it is nkali. It's a noun that loosely translates to be greater than another. Like our economic and political worlds, stories too are defined by the principle of nkali. How they are told, who tells them, when they are told, how many stories are told, are really dependent on power. Power is the ability not just to tell the story of another person, but to make it the definitive story of that person. The Palestinian poet Mourid Barghouti writes that if you want to dispossess a people, the simplest way to do it is to tell their story and to start with secondly. Start the story with the arrows of the Native Americans and not with the arrival of the British, and you have an entirely different story. Start the story with the failure of the African state and not with the colonial creation of the African state, and you have an entirely different story. I recently spoke at a university where a student told me that it was such a shame that Nigerian men were physical abusers like the father character in my novel. I told him that I had just read a novel called American Psycho, and that it was such a shame that young Americans were serial murderers. Now, obviously, I said this in a fit of mild irritation, but it would never have occurred to me to think that just because I had read a novel in which a character was a serial killer, that he was somehow representative of all Americans. And now, this is not because I'm a better person than that student, but because of America's cultural and economic power. I had many stories of America. I had read Tylan, Updike, and Steinbeck, and Gateskill. I did not have a single story of America. When I learned some years ago that writers were expected to have had really unhappy childhoods to be successful, I began to think about how I could invent horrible things my parents had done to me. But the truth is that I had a very happy childhood, full of laughter and love, in a very close-knit family. But I also had grandfathers who died in refugee camps. My cousin, Polly, died because he could not get adequate health care. One of my closest friends, Ukuloma, died in a plane crash because our fire trucks did not have water. I grew up under repressive military governments that devalued education so that sometimes my parents were not paid their salaries. And so as a child, I saw jam disappear from the breakfast table. Then margarine disappeared. Then bread became too expensive. Then milk became rationed. And most of all, a kind of normalized political fear invaded our lives. All of these stories make me who I am. But to insist on only these negative stories is to flatten my experience and to overlook the many other stories that formed me. The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. Of course, Africa is a continent full of catastrophes, the immense ones, such as the horrific rapes in Congo, and depressing ones, such as the fact that 5,000 people apply for one job vacancy in Nigeria. But there are other stories that are not about catastrophe, and it is very important, it is just as important to talk about them. I've always felt that it is impossible to engage properly with a place or a person without engaging with all of the stories of that place and that person. The consequence of the single story is this: it robs people of dignity. It makes our recognition of our equal humanity difficult. It emphasizes how we are different rather than how we are similar. So what if before my Mexican trip, I had followed the immigration debate from both sides, the US and the Mexican? What if my mother had told us that Fide's family was poor and hardworking? What if we had an African television network that broadcast diverse African stories all over the world, what the Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe calls a balance of stories? What if my roommate knew about my Nigerian publisher, Mukhtar Bakare, a remarkable man who left his job in a bank to follow his dream and start a publishing house? Now, the conventional wisdom was that Nigerians don't read literature. He disagreed. He felt that people who could read would read if you made literature affordable and available to them. Shortly after he published my first novel, I went to a TV station in Lagos to do an interview. And a woman who worked there as a messenger came up to me and said, "I really liked your novel. I didn't like the ending. Now you must write a sequel, and this is what will happen." And she went on to tell me what to write in the sequel. Now, I was not only charmed, I was very moved. Here was a woman, part of the ordinary masses of Nigerians who were not supposed to be readers. She had not only read the book, but she had taken ownership of it and felt justified in telling me what to write in the sequel. Now, what if my roommate knew about my friend Fumi Yonda, a fearless woman who hosts a TV show in Lagos and is determined to tell the stories that we prefer to forget? What if my roommate knew about the heart procedure that was performed in the Lagos hospital last week? What if my roommate knew about contemporary Nigerian music, talented people singing in English and Pidgin and Igbo and Yoruba and Ijo, mixing influences from Jay-Z to Fela to Bob Marley to their grandfathers? What if my roommate knew about the female lawyer who recently went to court in Nigeria to challenge a ridiculous law that required women to get their husband's consent before renewing their passports? What if my roommate knew about Nollywood, full of innovative people making films despite great technical odds? Films so popular that they really are the best example of Nigerians consuming what they produce. What if my roommate knew about my wonderfully ambitious hair braider who has just started her own business selling hair extensions? Or about the millions of other Nigerians who start businesses and sometimes fail, but continue to nurse ambition? Every time I am home, I am confronted with the usual sources of irritation for most Nigerians: our failed infrastructure, our failed government, but also by the incredible resilience of people who thrive despite the government rather than because of it. I teach writing workshops in Lagos every summer, and it is amazing to me how many people apply, how many people are eager to write, to tell stories. My Nigerian publisher and I have just started a non-profit called Farafina Trust, and we have big dreams of building libraries and refurbishing libraries that already exist and providing books for state schools that don't have anything in their libraries, and also of organizing lots and lots of workshops on reading and writing for all the people who are eager to tell our many stories. Stories matter. Many stories matter. Stories have been used to dispossess and to malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Stories can break the dignity of a people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity. The American writer Alice Walker wrote this about her southern relatives who had moved to the north, and she introduced them to a book about the southern life that they had left behind. They sat around reading the book themselves, listening to me read the book, and the kind of paradise was regained. I would like to end with this thought, that when we reject the single story, when we realize that there is never a single story about any place, we regain a kind of paradise. Thank you.
What is a quick thought, if you can share?
We should not be prejudiced, and we should not have negative opinion about
No implicit biases.
And why were they showing this?
Don't get stuck with one opinion. There will always be
No implicit biases.
It's not a single story of the day.
When you write an answer, that's why I was saying you write all the details. And tell them that you know there are so many opinions. You might agree, disagree. The more you write about the one that you disagree, the more you show off yourself as somebody who is a learned person, who is an informed person. Cool? Great. Nice meeting you guys.